Alright, in this tutorial we will implement a function that emulates a elevator that would allow this wheelchair user to go from this floor of the building to that floor of the building. And in order to get that logic, we must go to our class folder, and there is a folder called Unity and Scripts, and there you find a C# script that's called load scene on trigger. So you would download this to your local hard drive, and then when you have downloaded it, you would create in your asset scripts folder, which I already have, and drag it in that scripts folder. So it should then look like it does here. Load scene on trigger is here. To simulate something like an elevator, I have created a simple cube with a transparent material that would roughly resemble a transparent elevator. And I also did that on this other floor where the wheelchair would then move when the elevator is used. Right, so we would start down below here, and using that elevator we would then move up, so to say. In order to do that, Unity needs a bit of logic, and that is provided by the script here. So I have named these two cubes elevator first, so the first floor, and elevator second for the second floor. So let's go to the elevator first floor, and what we can then do to give it this logic is drag this script with the object selected to the inspector, and then it becomes a logic that works with that game object. And what that script does is it has two fields which we should fill out. One is called player and one is called scene to load. So the player here in this project is the VR wheelchair rig, and we can drag this from the hierarchy to the slot where it says player. So when the player, and that's what the script does, collides with that game object here, it would load a scene which we can name under scene to load. So let's call the scene to load level 2. And we must, under box collider, check that this collider is a trigger. When we do that, it triggers this script. So we can, if you want, double click that script in the scripts folder. Microsoft Visual Studio will then open, and that gives us an overview of such a Unity script in the C# language. So the first four entries are libraries, codes that are used for this script. Then it declares how the script is called. Then under public, we get these two variables, one for the player, one for the scene to load. And then we get a function that when the trigger is entered, the collider, it checks whether a collider on a child object of our player collides with that mesh collider, and then loads the scene we have defined above here. So just a little insight into how logic in a Unity project can be brought in. But here we are just using the script. What we should also tell our users is a little bit what this game object here does. So it's a good idea to annotate it a little bit with some text. So in your package manager, if you don't have it, go to Window Package Manager and you get that. And in project, you should find Text Mesh Pro, so that allows us to make text in Unity. If you don't find it, you can go to Unity Registry, scroll down to where you find TextMesh Pro, and you would then find Add to Project here, and then you get that function. So when TextMesh Pro is installed, we can right-click in the hierarchy. Under 3D Object, we find TextMesh Pro. This will then generate a text object. When we double click on it, we find it. So it's enormously huge. We can change its size here with a width of say 1 meter and a height of 0.3 meters. And down here we find the font size, and let's say that font size is 1. And here we can change the text. So let's say go up, and perhaps we also write you are on the first floor, go up, something like that. When we double click, we find that text. The width is probably now a little bit too wide. What happens when we are going to 0.6? Yeah, that looks okay. So we would then drag this text to our elevator game object and position it so that our wheelchair user can see it. So our head height is not that high, so the text should also not be too far from the floor. And then we try to move the text close to the elevator. It looks as if it's written on that elevator. And then we can rename the text to tag first floor. Ctrl D would then allow us to move it up to the other floor. And here we would write you are on the second floor. Go down. If there was a third floor, we would probably make two elevators, one that goes up, one that goes down. Now we have the elevator on the upper floor that also needs the script. So load scene on trigger. Make sure that Box Collider is a trigger. Again, we slot in the wheelchair rig as our player. And here we would then load level 1. So we are defining scenes here that we don't yet have. So what we do now is make sure we have the logic set up on our elevators. The script is there and it is defined with all the parameters it needs. We can save the scene, and then on the lower floor we would save the scene as in the scenes as level 1, and then drag up to the other floor, so it's slightly above the floor, and save this as under scenes as level 2. So now we have these two levels. One level starts up here and the other level starts down here. When we have these different levels, we can perform an optimization. So from the upper level, the wheelchair user will not be able to see this tree here. So we can deactivate this tree. The wheelchair user may also not see these walls because the head height is too low to look above these walls here. So we can also deactivate these walls. The user is also not going to see this floor. so we can deactivate this. It's a good strategy to always deactivate or simply not use geometries that will never be visible from a certain vantage point. So you see, that's what the wheelchair user sees from up here roughly. So the walls down below are not visible. So if they are not present in the scene, they don't have to be rendered, and that won't slow down our scene. The converse is also true for the lower level, level 1. Let's go back to this level, level 1. So in the level 1, we actually see more because we can move around. And we would still see these walls in the upper floor. We would still see the ceiling. We can go into this garden. So there we cannot really deactivate much, except just perhaps the elevator in the second floor, because that will never be visible. Again, imagine or try what you can see from a certain level, and whatever it is you can't see, you can safely turn off. Okay, with that said, we can now proceed with building. So the build settings, we would want this level 1 that is open. And now we will also need to load the level 2 and add that too. So we can build more than one scene. The scene that's first to load should always be on the top. So you can swap them around if you want to start, say for instance, at a certain level above level 1. But here I want to start down below and then move up. In the player settings, we make sure that our project has a unique name. So I call this wheelchair elevator here. Version number. Here in the API level, make sure that Android 11 is selected. Down below, ARM64 must be checked, and scripting backend ILCPP. When that's done, you can build this. So the build has completed, and I will conclude this video with a recording from within the headset.